Hello, everyone. My name is Marie Carola. I'm the CMO of StealthEX, and we're continuing the cryptocurrency interview series that we have just recently started. So it's our third interview. Larry, you're in the very, very front of our novelties in here. And today
Third time's a charm, huh?
Yeah, right? Today we're joined by Laurie from IoTeX, and today we're going to talk about some basics, cover some main concepts, talk about the future, of course, and discuss some stuff from the field in general, like privacy, like the main trends, what awaits us probably, gonna make some predictions, and just have a little friendly chat of everything that's been going around in cryptocurrency. And first of all, I would like you to introduce yourself properly, probably.
Well, thanks, Maria. My name is Larry. I head of business development at IoTeX, and I was born in Los Angeles. Went to school at MIT, and spent my first career in consulting for 5 years, working a lot of big digital transformation projects for enterprises, and jumped over to Silicon Valley and joined IoTeX just about 3 years ago. But my goal for this conversation is just to make everyone that's listening have a better understanding of blockchain and IoT, because I think a lot of the craze has been around, decentralized finance, and rightfully so, right? We've seen a renaissance in DeFi over 2020, but I want to expand people's imagination of IoT, not just to use blockchain to fix the problems of IoT, which are more around security and privacy, but also using IoT to solve some of the problems of blockchain, which are the fact that we don't have real world information that we can build new economies on top of. So that's kind of what I wanted to frame the discussion around, but there's so much going on in this space. I'm happy to take it anywhere and really excited for the conversation.
Okay, that's awesome. So you already mentioned IoT, which is the Internet of Things. For all the people who have not heard about it before, can you just have like a brief explanation and what do you think is the best definition of it?
Absolutely. So breaking that down, right? Internet of Things. Let's start with things, right? What kind of things are we talking about? We're talking about this all these different smart connected devices around the world that are pulling data from the real world and delivering it to applications in order to make our lives a better place. It stretches across things like smart home, to smart city, to agriculture, to even space in the future. Those things that are orbiting around our world called satellites are connected to our world in different ways, right? So the internet part is the connection. So when these things are connected, not only to humans, but to other machines, we're going to start to see a lot of automation happen. So right now, IoT is already impacting our lives in a lot of different ways, but it's more one way, right? Devices give us things and humans react and we make use of that value. But in the future, machines are going to it's going to start to sound a little Black Mirror here, but stick with me. Machines are going to be intelligent to the point where they can have their own artificial intelligence, be programmed with goals that they know how to solve, and they're going to transact with other machines and even humans in order to solve those goals. So it all sounds really cool, really sexy, but while we get to that distant point where we're talking about machines having intelligence, we also have to consider the security, the privacy, and the trust issues that come along with that, right? It's no longer just, my security camera is going to tell me when my front door is open. We're going to be riding in robo-taxis that, our life depends on their ability to run in a safe fashion, right? So everything between robo-taxis and smart cameras and everything in between is part of the Internet of Things. And we're trying to use blockchain to not only enable more security and trust in the Internet of Things, but again, use IoT also to expand the capabilities of blockchain and create a new decentralized economy using blockchain and IoT.
So how does IoTeX actually solve the creepy Black Mirror problems? And what did you guys do to actually make it all happen? So the very basics of the project as such.
Yeah. So at the core of what IoTeX is, right, we're a smart contract platform. We're a layer one blockchain platform, but we designed everything from scratch, starting from 2017, and really designed it to be tailor fit to the Internet of Things. And what that means from a blockchain level is that, you have to have very fast consensus. The Internet of Things, we're moving data around so quickly. You need to have a mechanism in order to make sure transactions don't need 6 confirmations like Bitcoin, or else these devices are stalled and automation cannot occur. So our blockchain is one of the fastest and most reliable in the industry. We've done 5-second block times with instant finality. And it's good for things like, decentralized exchanges, which are running on IoTeX, but it's also perfect for the future of the Internet of Things. The other thing on top of blockchain, because blockchain is not a silver bullet, it's not going to solve everything, right? So you have to layer on additional technologies on top of blockchain in order to get new benefits, right? So blockchain, we consider to be kind of the root of trust in the network, right? Another important one is decentralized identity, which is the root of self-sovereignty in our network. We want every user and every device in the IoTeX network, or that's powered by the IoTeX network, to own the information. So we have a goal for 2021, right? It's mostly about, we want to deliver ownership of devices, ownership and control of devices, as well as the value and the data that they generate, right? So when we think about all the data from our devices, who owns it today? It's mostly centralized cloud providers that deliver us services, but now we're starting to see the impacts of all the dirty things they've been doing behind the scenes with our data. And I feel like we're at a tipping point. So, but going back to the platform question, right? So we have blockchain, we have decentralized identity, and the last real piece is around using a different type of hardware. It's called secure hardware, like the chips in your Ledger device that protect your private keys, the chips in your phone that manage your Face ID and your fingerprints. These are all examples of secure hardware that is kind of different than your traditional hardware in the sense that it protects the integrity and the confidentiality of all your information. We consider it to be tamper-proof hardware, and blockchain is kind of like a tamper-proof software. So the combination of these two elements linked by this DID mechanism is exactly how we enable users to own their devices and for devices to be trusted in the IoTeX network.
So this is the main question, is the question of privacy, basically. So this is what IoTeX is working on. And do you consider generally privacy of identity of data kind of like the core questions and issues that needs to be solved in this progress?
Yes and no, right? So privacy, I consider to be an indirect benefit, right? To peel back the onion a little bit, what we're focused on is not necessarily privacy only. It's about ownership, right? And once you own your information, one of the things you can do with it is to keep it private, right? Ownership in this sense means exclusive ownership. You are the only one with that information. And it's kind of like the your keys, your funds concept that Bitcoin has made very popular, except in this sense, it's your keys, your funds, your data as well, right? So with that data, if you have a Bitcoin, you can choose not to do anything with that. And you can choose not to tell anyone you have that Bitcoin. It's the beauty of pseudonymity in blockchain, right? But also the same case with what you want to do with your information. So this is what we really tackled in 2020, is we launched the first camera product that really exemplifies what we're talking about today, right? This is called Ucam. It's a nice little BB-8 looking home security camera that we partnered with a really large security camera manufacturer to make, called Tenvis. And it's already selling on Amazon with thousands of users all over the world now. And it really is giving people the first experience of, okay, I own my information. Now, what do I want to do with it? I can keep it private. I can share it at my own discretion. I can revoke that access at my own discretion. And it's not really the right vehicle, but eventually these devices are going to be able to generate data that's valuable to other people. And whether that's just donating to a research institution or selling your information outright to an enterprise or a startup or whoever needs it, that's another option about what you can do with your data, right? But that last piece, we kind of call this concept of DeFi-OT, right? Decentralized finance for the Internet of Things, where the data from the Internet of Things is really going to fuel a lot of decentralized finance use cases around buying, selling, trading. It just so happens that the videos from your home are not really great candidates to be sold to other people. So all devices are different,
Exactly. This camera looks awesome, and congratulations on launching it. This is big, because the last time we spoke, I believe it was not launched yet, and this is something new, and really that's a huge step, especially considering that it's not obvious for I think for many people this is it's something that we're so used to. So, for example, the security cameras in homes, that you don't really think about connecting them to blockchain. This is kind of
right,
strange and kind of unusual. And probably many people are still not used to kind of thinking of blockchain not only as kind of a thing that crypto works on, but also this like data structure that can help in many, many, many ways. And how do you actually promote these ideas, and how do you make people on board these ideas? Because you're in business development, so you should definitely know that.
Yeah, I'd love to share the journey of like how Ucam got to be. And there's so many little anecdotes that I think are really peculiar about the way that society recognizes issues and chooses to deal with them, right? So just this time last year, we were at CES, which is the world's largest consumer electronics show. And we actually got a great start to our Ucam project because we won the CES Innovation Award for cybersecurity and personal privacy. So we walked into CES thinking we were big stuff. And, it's like, oh, CES recognizes that blockchain-enabled privacy is going to be a big trend, right? And this was also at the time where the US mainstream media was being flooded with all of these stories about, this guy hacked into an Amazon Ring camera and was talking to their kids and pretending to be Santa Claus, and it freaked everybody out, right? So we went into CES thinking everyone's going to want a privacy camera, because how could they not? It's all over the news, right? But it's really funny how consumer adoption works. Then I started to take a think back. It's like, this is not the first instance where a computer or a smart device was hacked. This happened for the past decade without anyone batting an eye. And that continued throughout 2020. And some confluence of COVID, misinformation in elections, and I don't know what else. Now we're starting to see the tipping point where people are migrating over to privacy solutions, starting with this whole WhatsApp to Telegram and Signal mass migration, right? Signal got 20 million new users over the past month. And if that's not a tipping point, I don't really know what it is. At least it's the early adopter tipping point, right? Where people are recognizing that even though Facebook and other big tech companies are marketing private messengers, how can we trust that, right? You have to go to the decentralized bottoms up version. So that's why Signal is being considered to be so valuable now, is because, there's not a big tech company behind it. They don't have to just believe the claims that they've seen. They finally have an alternative. So that's where that migration from private messengers is happening in real time as we speak. And, maybe it's not yet time where everyone will acknowledge that, okay, this privacy messenger thing, there are other things in my life that I want to be private. But I think the next natural thought process is going to be, okay, what are all the other sensitive things that the big tech touches today? My private messages probably is the first thing that people think about. Maybe next their finances, but it's inevitable that the devices that, that capture what we do at home, that capture our conversations at home, all of these things will need to be privatized. And it's just a really big wind at our backs that people are starting to recognize this. And I thought it was funny, it's like at a point where we thought the tipping point wasn't there yet. But now I think Ucam, even though it's a product that has already launched last year, is going to have an even bigger year this year, just because people are ready for it.
Yeah, it seemed like privacy was a trend like a couple of years ago, when everybody on conferences and things like that and some very special events, everybody was talking about privacy, and everybody was like, yeah, we need to do more things concerning privacy and blah, blah, blah. And of course, it's right and it's cool, but this is very true that people who were kind of just consumers of products, of apps, of whatever, they were not exactly thinking this direction yet. And probably this wave of, it's interesting how this year everything shaped this way. What do you think was the main kind of trigger for all this privacy movement, and will it continue further, and will it still be a trend like right now?
Yeah, I think we talk to a lot of our customers, right, around the world. It's really interesting that people give us different answers based on where they're from, right? But the thing that's a common denominator, the thread that connects all of them, is that, there's a lack of trust in some capacity there, right? People don't just search for privacy if the people they were trying to keep things private from were trustworthy, right? Then, what's the reason for privacy if there's full trust in the institutions or the services rather that deliver to you, right? So that's why this blockchain and decentralized aspect, the services are not changing, but the mechanisms that deliver these services are, right? It's no longer a Fortune 500 company that is born out of capitalism, and people should understand that these big tech companies are not doing anything wrong. They're just driving value to their shareholders and trying to skirt regulations. People have done this for decades, right? But when there is an alternative, meaning people don't trust those institutions anymore, then they're going to start to seek areas where they can rebuild some of that trust, at least subjectively, right? There's going to be people that never migrate over to our world, right? My mother, for example, God bless her, but she's not a techie, right? She's not going to understand this, and she just wants convenience. But the people, especially the younger generation and anyone with an engineering background, are going to start to understand that, okay, not only do the centralized solutions that I use today not have to work this way, but now there's an alternative that I can switch to, right? And I think the last thing I'll say is, along the trust thing, it is very subjective, right? And in some countries that we talk to, corporations are the last of people's worries, right? They want trust from their governments and they want trust from their public institutions, right? And that's a whole different issue. So it's really interesting to see how the privacy narrative is wrapping the entire world, but in different ways, right? I think I always have a very US centric mindset because I live here, and it really reminds you that some of the worries that you deal with from a convenience perspective, or from my data is being mined and people are making money off of me, is the least of the worries to other people that are being surveilled by the institutions that are assigned to protect them. So I think what we're building here is applicable to the consumer space to sell devices, but the technology that backs it is really going to provide a lot of trust for a lot of regions in the world.
Yeah, this is big, because you're right about the fact that all the people in different in different parts of the world have their own issues. And so probably we can consider ourselves very privileged from the point of, okay, I don't want somebody looking at my messages and selling my data and so on, but there are bigger problems than that. That's a very bright thought, and probably everybody should think about it once in a while. But coming back to IoTeX, so except of lack of privacy and lack of trust in services that people use sometimes, what IoTeX is trying to solve, also there is, of course, mass adoption and scalability. And you guys say that scalability is one of the things that you're working on. And what is this path, and how does this develop?
Yeah, so scalability is interesting. For us, we do a lot of things on layer 2, but unconventionally, right? So we've designed our layer 1, our blockchain, to be very, very fast, right? Again, very fast consensus and a lot of transactions per second that, we just reached 10 million transactions on the IoTeX network, which is great, but we have a long way to go there, right? As far as scalability goes, we're building on top of this fast blockchain. We actually use that concept of secure hardware as a way to outsource computation to trusted resources. This is going to take a little explanation to explain, but let me try to do my best, right? So there's a concept called secure hardware, where it's basically you process things in a completely trusted zone. Again, the things that are embedded into your ledger wallets and your phones and manage your Face ID and your fingerprints, that's all like an isolated part of your phone that you can think about it as a black box, right? Everything you do in this box is trustworthy, and that's why you trust your phone to hold your private keys. For any crypto wallet app you use, you're putting your private key in there, and it's being stored in this isolated zone that nobody can crack, right? So what we're doing is the problem with that today is all of that is closed. You can't program on top of these secure elements or secure hardware mechanisms, right? We are building an operating system that opens that up and allows people to place their private data in there with algorithms and basically run that process in a trusted fashion. It's basically an unbiased third party. You think about like an army of robots that just do what they're told, right? And that is the perfect mechanism in order to scale blockchains, because blockchain is good to have a very nice ledger and traceability of everything that went on in the chain, but it doesn't necessarily have to execute all of the commands. It can outsource the execution of those commands to other trusted mechanisms, right? So a lot of people think about layer 2 as one blockchain outsourcing computation to another blockchain. It can also be a blockchain outsourcing computation to a verifiable and trusted robot or a device that does something for you, right? And that's how we think about scalability. But this method of using secure hardware as kind of layer 2 mechanisms doesn't just provide scalability, it also provides privacy, right? So running and outsourcing computations to these kind of confidential and data integrity respecting robots or machines allows you to outsource the transactions, but also outsource the privacy to mechanisms that are better at it. We all know blockchain is not good for privacy. You really have to layer on additional technologies on top of that. And in a nutshell, that's exactly what we did with Ucam, right? We're not running any of the processing on IoTeX smart contracts. The identity is registered to the IoTeX blockchain, and all the blockchain is the one that orchestrates the device to do things, but it's not the one that will do everything, right? So this is one thing I think was going to be a big trend in 2021. You're going to start to see a lot of people combining other technologies with blockchain to just expand the capabilities of it. But that secure hardware thing that I'm talking about, there's so many angles to that. And, you know, it's the reason why IoTeX is so focused on IoT, because all these opportunities that we're talking about, it's not just about making blockchain better, but it's also about making the IoT better as well.
What are you planning on more devices work? Are you planning on more this expansion in blockchain technology merging with IoT? What are generally the plans of IoTeX, and where are you guys going? What's on the roadmap that's like big?
That's a great question. You know, we're just about to release our 2021 roadmap, which we've been working on for quite a while. And, you know, I can't be more excited, right? You know, one thing I really want to share is we have this vision, right? Everyone in the IoTeX community knows our vision is to empower not just the Internet of Things, but what we call the Internet of Trusted Things, right? And this is literally just embedding guaranteed trust into the Internet of Things that we know today, right? But in the future, that's still a very distant future, right? Where, you know, the machines and all the users and all the algorithms we interact with on a daily basis are verifiable and trustworthy. This is our ultimate goal. But being methodical and understanding that this is not going to be an overnight thing requires us to think about, okay, how do we go back and design the step-by-step phases and components and capabilities that will reach this future, right? So this Internet of Trusted Things concept, you can think about it as trusted economies, where humans and machines are interacting. You know, again, machines are intelligent. This is still a little Black Mirror, but that future is coming in this decade, or at least it's going to start to sprout in this decade. But before we get there, right, you know, last year we really focused on what's called, you know, self-sovereign devices. Trusted devices is the first step in our journey to that Internet of Trusted Things. Decentralized identity, where devices and people can talk to each other, where users can own these devices as well as the data that they generate. You know, we've already checked that box, right? And just in this kind of capability / vertical, we do plan to bring more devices like Ucam to market, right? But what's the next thing? You know, just having trusted devices is not the Internet of Trusted Things, right? The next step is really about trusted data, right? So this Ucam device is great because it will deliver services and will deliver data directly to its owner, right? So this device is already serving its owner. The next step is to use devices where one device can serve multiple people in a trusted fashion, both from a data perspective and from a service perspective, right? So our next really big project is all about this device right here. It's called Pebble Tracker. And this is a GPS, it's an asset tracking device, and it has a built-in secure element like the one I was talking about, right? So all of the data that's captured by this device is signed at the moment it's generated and made available to blockchain smart contracts. It does metrics like GPS location, temperature, humidity, air pressure, air quality. It has an accelerometer and gyroscope for motion and shock, and finally has a light sensor. So it's jam-packed with all of the data that you can want for any supply chain, transportation, logistics, et cetera, use case. But more importantly, it has that secure element where you're signing the information. And what that does is it makes it verifiable to anyone, even outside of the device owner himself, right? So when we think about these supply chain scenarios, you have all of these different parties. Some of them are collaborators, some of them are competitors. And going back to that issue about, where does our world lack trust today? Our supply chain is definitely one of them, right? There's so many elements to supply chain, but figuring out who is at fault for what and figuring out where things are along this, global scale is very, very important. But right now there's a big gap in trust because you have all these centralized parties that are service providers that, are hired for a lot of money by all these institutions, but behind the scenes, we see stories about them being corrupt and, not treating our data with respect, right? So removing these corrupt and inefficient intermediaries that are error prone and replacing them with unbiased, trusted robot workers that can kind of deliver you the same results. This is the next phase of what we're doing, right? So evolving just from trusted devices to also trusted data from trusted devices. So this is a very big initiative that we're getting started this quarter. We have a lot of really great builders doing things like using verifiable data for, ultra secure supply chain, but even using verifiable data to do things like training machine learning algorithms, because they have an issue where the data that they're taking in needs to be absolutely trustworthy and reliable, right? So the next foray for IoTeX this year is all about what can we do with verifiable data from verifiable devices. And I won't dive in too deep into the next phase, but we're entering a place where machines can not only verifiably deliver data to many people, but also machines can verifiably deliver services to other people as well. So that's kind of a distant 2021 goal. But like I said, we're going to be publishing our roadmap very soon to share more details about that.
This is a lot for 1 year. And actually, there is a question from the community that really fits into this whole story that you've told about the verifiable data and the new device that you're working on. Because this is more of you were talking about supply chains. This is kind of, when you think about marketing, about how it's going to be presented, this is very kind of B2B solution. And one of people on Twitter asked whether you're going to have some enterprise level partnerships this year and whether there's going to be something big from the point of business development, which is exactly your field.
The answer is yes, right? And the reason why I'm so confident in saying that is because this is already an enterprise partnership, right? Both of these are actually already enterprise partnerships, maybe not with the household names like a Sony or an Apple or things like that, but in the IoT space, Tenvis has been around. He's our partner for the security camera. They've been around for since 2005. They sold millions of cameras to government, to retail, to consumer, to enterprise. And bringing a device to market alongside that enterprise was a direct partnership. And there's even distribution and marketing partnerships with them after the fact. It's still considered a 10-bis product that's powered by IoTeX, but we went through that entire journey. And we launched this on Amazon in September, but we started that work even 1 year ago, right? The same thing applies to Pebble, right? So Pebble is the partnership between IoTeX and a chip manufacturer, one of the world's largest chip manufacturers named Nordic Semiconductor, right? They're They do billions in revenues a year. And we worked with them, again, to design this board and also to merge our open source libraries together in order to allow for this kind of open source development experience on top of this operating system, right? But where this is headed is, we worked with Nordic, which is like a very low stack kind of tech partner, but you're right that this is not necessarily going to be a consumer product, but IoTeX has many different angles that we're tackling, right? One of them is we are a part of a lot of these professional organizations like the IEEE and IIC. We're actually the co-chairs of the IIC's blockchain working group. And the IIC is composed of 400 of the largest IoT organizations in the world. So our goal with that is to really introduce verifiable data to people that are looking for it, right? If you went to a regular consumer today and said, hey, this device will give you verifiable data versus non-verifiable data, they're going to think, okay, in my consumer lifestyle, why do I care if it's verifiable? Am I going to pay extra for the verifiability? And, maybe it's going to be like a value-added service today, but it's more likely just going to be a sudden shift in a standard, right? Driven by regulation, driven by compliance. But that's already happening in the enterprise space. And it's not any like government body enforcing these regulations or compliance. They're self-enforcing the regulation and compliance, because if they make a misstep in trusting someone that they shouldn't, that affects their bottom line, right? And again, corporations are just capitalists, and all they care about is money, right? So in that respect, how do you fit technology to make their world operate in a better way, right? We just talked to a really large or really interesting project that's working on, shipping parts that are worth $20 million from one place to another, right? And he mentioned that, there's certain accelerations where you cannot change, you have to ship these components under certain thresholds of acceleration, of shock. If you think about, if your package is open, it has to be under certain light thresholds. So this is kind of like the data provider for those situations, but we're really going to start to see people extend this verifiable data into kind of verifiable insights and then verifiable actions from those insights, right? So let me give you an example. It's kind of like if you had a Pebble tracker and you wanted to, it's going to be reading your real-time GPS location at all times, right? Those raw coordinates are useful, but what you really want are the insights from that raw coordinates, right? At this point in time, based on my raw GPS coordinates, how far away am I from the next checkpoint? Or how far am I away from a certain person or a place of interest? And that can help to automate a lot of different things, right? If you're able to present information in a verifiable and also kind of like a selective privacy preserving way, I can only make this available to certain people, then that can really streamline the operations of any supply chain use case. You can give a heads up without disclosing the raw details. You can trigger different smart contracts that can settle payments, that can enforce service level agreements. The most obvious use case for Pebble that everyone talks to us about is COVID tracking, right? Or not COVID tracking, but vaccine tracking, because you need to have it under a certain temperature. You can't have too much vibration on the package. Even like knowing if the package was opened, you can have the light sensor. And of course, the GPS can tell you where it is, right? So you should think about these devices as verifiable insights generators. And it's really the goal of us to work with enterprises and companies to figure out what can we do with this verifiable data at the end of the day. And that's the really exciting part. But yeah, we'll see how it all turns out.
Yeah, it's exciting. Actually, when you were talking, I was thinking about also the ways that it can be interesting for the consumers. And this is kind of like another obvious idea is when you talk about tracking, when you talk about GPS, is for example like parent control. So like to know where your kid is, and this data is only shared with certain people. So actually there might be not only B2B solution, but also kind of like to the client too. And this might be interesting for a wider audience. And from this, coming back to the cameras, and you said that you launched them on Amazon and that now they're sold there. How do people find it? So what are the main concerns of the people who buy them? Because there are thousands of cameras on Amazon, obviously, and so people must search for them very specifically, because this is a camera that not only films whatever is around, but also provides the data and all this privacy layer. And how do right now, how do people find it, and what is the kind of target audience of your product?
Yeah, we started, that's a really great question, by the way. It's like, how do you go to market with a product that people don't know exists, right? And that was actually a learning lesson for us, right? We launched this thing on Amazon, and Tenvis has a lot of experience selling on Amazon, right? Like their last camera, they sold millions in the past few years. And there's one of those cameras that have like 30,000 reviews on it. And, but Amazon is a place where people go and they know what they're looking for, right? It's not really a window shopping kind of place. So when people type in security camera into Amazon, they're not necessarily looking for a private security camera because they don't know that exists, right? So, what's interesting is on Amazon, we actually had to brand the camera, or Tenvis branded the camera in order to sell it more as things like pet camera and security camera, and tagged it with these kind of things because you kind of have to capture on Amazon as a platform, at least, you have to capture their interest of what they're looking for and then upsell them the feature, whether it's privacy or for other cameras, it's going to be like, we have 1080p versus 780p, or rather 4K versus 1080p, right? But we've also on the side been working to start a lot of new channels that we're really excited about. One of them that we launched on December is a channel called Touch of Modern. And it's basically a bunch of tech bros and gals that, they go to this website and try to find the latest tech products, right? And we found great success on that channel. So 2020, our refresh focus is not only to sell to the complete mainstream. And I think it's indicative of the quality of the product that we sold to people that probably never heard about blockchain before. And our ratings on Amazon, we have over, I think, 110, 120 now, 4.5 star ratings. And for a first time blockchain product, I think it's already amazing, right? But once we start to hit these channels, some of them that come with really great media coverage to explain the product first, explain how blockchain, end-to-end encryption, and edge computing are used to enable privacy, that will make, I don't think it's gonna blow up the sales to a point, but what we're trying to do with this camera is just build our early adopter audience of people that share the same vision as us, right? And educating people about it first versus giving them the surprise that this is a privacy camera after the fact is really important to us. And, applying that philosophy, I think we're going to see some really great success with Ucam, because not only are consumers demanding it this year, but also we have a refresh focus to really bring it to the people that are privacy conscious and not just everyone out there, right?
Do you think generally this trend of combining technology, kind of everyday use technology with blockchain will continue, and actually more people will be kind of ready to use it? Because I think about like older generation, for example, who obviously use some kind of devices like TVs or cameras or phones in lucky cases, but they don't even think that blockchain exists at all, and they have no clue what is that and what's it for and why is it all over the news with the Bitcoin thing and so on. I had very fun time explaining Bitcoin to my grandparents. They did not get it. I did my best though. But so how will this transition be possible? So what kind of media coverage or general education or kind of issues of real world do we need for mass adoption, like real mass adoption?
Yeah, I think I'll share with you some of the conversation I had with my parents, right? They were really interested to know, what is going on in this space. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of people my company's working on cameras and IoT devices that, make sure your privacy and security is protected. They're like, okay, that's great. What else? And I told them about one thing that really sparked their eye is, my parents are not great investors, coming as immigrants from another country. They don't really understand the stock market. They tried and failed a little bit. So from an investment perspective, from like a DeFi perspective, telling them that you can go to a Goldman Sachs owned company called Circle and deposit your cash, get a cash equivalent called USDC, and you can earn 8% on that was mind blowing to them, because they're like, okay, I just put my funds into a new checking account and they're giving me like, I don't know, like 0.5% annualized. And I was like, okay, did you hear about this other thing? So this concept of, you can get 20x your returns or even more by using financial products. I think this is what's going to really be attractive to the older generation that has wealth and has money and doesn't know how to invest it, right? In a relatively safe way. It's not necessarily like you have to go yield farming for this 8%. It's just the most basic foundational part of DeFi is lock your fiat, get stable coins and stake them, and you get recurring revenues. And you don't even have to. There's so many layers. You can stake USDC to get flex, and the flex you can but you don't have to worry about all that. Just worry about the first component of it, right? But I think for the younger generation, it's the complete opposite. They don't care about this stuff, right? They don't care about 8% annualized returns. They're thinking about how am I going to interact with people in the future, and how is the world going to look, right? We talked a lot about enterprise use cases for Pebble, but let's break down Pebble a bit, right? I think the most interesting metric from Pebble Tracker is going to be GPS location, right? Once you have verifiable GPS location, then you're going to start to see a lot of like Pokemon Go style games emerge, right? Where even a restaurant, if they wanted to give you a happy hour discount, they can pay you in crypto and allow it to use in their restaurants based on your GPS location, right? Are you in my restaurant at this time? If yes, here's your happy hour discount, right? Another thing is if you went to Coachella, for example, right? And you wanted to get a Coachella NFT, prove to me that you were there with your identity and your fingerprint and this verifiable GPS location. If yes, congrats, you just got a limited edition NFT, right? Even smaller scale can be, were you at my charity event? Were you at this thing? So this verifiable information is just a way for people to voluntarily prove I did something, right? A lot of the times in the enterprise space, we're pointing the finger and says, you didn't do that, so you owe me money, right? But on the flip side, in our normal society, this is the ultimate benefit of owning your information, right? Owning and controlling your data means you don't have to give up that data if you don't want to, but there's going to be so many new opportunities for you to voluntarily submit and opt in to programs. And say that you opt into that happy hour thing, but you never go. There's no penalty for you, right? These are all additive and consumer beneficial type of things that we're talking about. And that's just GPS location, right? If we're starting to talk about temperature, and we're starting to talk about verifiable video, once this thing has object detection, then maybe you don't even need your GPS information. You can just have object detection, and it can be done in a secure way at that restaurant, right? So a lot of people say, well, we're in like price discovery mode for Bitcoin. I think we're in use case discovery mode for verifiable information. And just like, the last thing I'll say about this is just like the DeFi renaissance, I think was born out of the fact that people finally had a single version of the truth as far as crypto prices go. The oracles that brought this data to the network really had a boom in 2020, but they only focused on such a micro fraction of the world's data, which is crypto prices, right? Once we start to bring real world data that's verifiable by anyone, that's going to just be the root or the foundation for a lot of new economies to sprout. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's just, we can't even comprehend what's going to happen right now, but step by step, our path is trusted data, trusted devices that offer verifiable data and verifiable services towards our path to the Internet of Trusted Things. So, yeah.
So I think to wrap it up, I will also ask about the trends. We talked a lot about the trends now, even in the last question, but what do you think is going to be this next big thing? And we saw DeFi, we saw privacy, and it's all continuing, obviously, and it's kind of merging with something else and becoming something bigger and so on. So what else will be added into this flow this year, in a couple years, in your opinion, at least what's going to matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think the industry is calling for social, right? Social tokens and social frameworks. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that social is going to have a very big year. I'm not sure if you've been paying attention to all these like NFT sales, but they're fascinating to me, right? Of course, outside looking in, people are like, why is someone spending $250,000 on AI generated art, right? But it's not about the real world. It's about these sub communities that are forming. It's kind of like the underground music scene, right? You're going to start to see a lot of these sub communities form around people and celebrities that, the real world has never heard of before. And you're starting to see this phenomenon across all social media platforms, right? I think TikTok really started something really interesting, regardless of what you think about the content on TikTok. What TikTok did was it made everyone a creator and gave everyone a platform. You don't need a huge amount of followers to go viral. That was the thing that was really the first aha moment for TikTok, right? And the next big thing, a lot of people in the crypto scene are going to Clubhouse, right? Clubhouse is that app. It's kind of like a drop-in audio room where you can go in and it's kind of like you're being dropped into a live podcast with people that you really respect, right? But these people that you respect are celebrities in sub communities, right? I was in a sub chat with like the VP of design at Twitter, someone that nobody knew. I didn't even know. And I'm not a designer, but I thought it was an interesting conversation to join. But when he dropped into that room, people were like, oh my God, it's this guy, right? And we didn't really have that. It's always been like, who's on the media, who's on the headlines, but people are going to be forming their own sub communities around this concept. And it's going to be powered by blockchain, I guarantee you, right? Because the bottoms up formation of sub communities is what we're talking about here. Crypto and blockchain are just tools in this ultimate goal, but it has all the right components to it, right? So starting with social, and then these sub communities are going to be sprouting within IoT, I think. That's the progression I see. It's going to be finance, social, and then everything that's surrounding our smart devices. And the really interesting part is these may be individual paths and individual trends right now, but when they merge all together, we have a concept of DeFi OT. We need to add social to that too, right? Because all those use cases I was talking to you about, verifiable data from our devices to generate an NFT that can serve as reputation in a sub community and can even be sold in a financial way. We just talked about all these trends in one use case that I think is going to really define where our decade's heading. So, we'll see how it all shakes out, but that's my prediction.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see because this is quite an unusual thought because we haven't been actually talking a lot about social things for some reason on any kind of interviews that I performed before. But this is an interesting progression because definitely social is such a big part of our life. And it's everywhere. And obviously one day it's going to become this next big thing. It already is, but just in our field. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much, Larry, for your insights. And now I'm just going to ask you whether you have some last words for everybody who's going to be watching and reading this interview after it goes live.
Yeah, I'll shamelessly plug our products. You can buy Ucam right now on ucam.iotex.io. It's a great camera, guys. I have 3 of them set up in my home, and it functions just like a Google camera or an Amazon camera, except you don't have to worry about them looking at your information. And for all the developers out there, I think this is a really great community, a sub-community of IoT that we're building. And it's not just in the blockchain space, but we're also working with really hardcore IoT developers that don't know about blockchain. So this marriage of people that want to use verifiable data in their smart contracts with the people that want to optimize the creation of that verifiable data through hardware, this is really the IoTeX community coming together as a whole. So, IoTeX has really big plans for this year. We're going to launch our roadmap probably this week. So just stay tuned with the progress. And, it's easy to follow our project because we have real products to show for it. So, yeah, we're looking forward to dropping more information and products in 2021. But always enjoy the chat and looking forward to maybe stepping back on later this year.
Thank you so much, Larry. It was a pleasure having you here. And I'm just reminding everybody that today we're joined by Larry from IoTeX, and we're wrapping up on this. And stay tuned both to IoTeX and StealthEX to check what's new. And we're going to drop the links to the products that Larry showed in the video and in the article everywhere you're checking this.